What is going on, y'all? Thank you for joining us here for the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where we are training up warriors, not weaklings. Today is Tuesday, September 2nd, the year of our Lord 2025. And this is where we come to get equipped to stand firm, speak truth, fight back against a culture that is trying to steal your faith, your family, and your freedom. Because the battle that we're in is not just political, it's spiritual. And the fight never takes a day off. So we are done pulling punches. The gloves are off and we are getting after it. Follow us at Mission Ready Men on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Truth Social, and be sure to subscribe to our Rumble and YouTube channels. And if you want to show them that you're in this fight, grab your gear at missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all the great designs that we have over there. All right, y'all, business is done. It is go time. And I want to update, follow up on the trans shooter that we talked about in Minnesota. What happens when you mix hormone injections, mental health meds, SSRIs, a serious identity crisis, and a deep hatred for Jesus? Well, you get a manifesto and dead kids in Minneapolis. We now know the shooter. Well, we kind of knew that from the beginning, but the shooter was a former student of the school, identified as female, thought he was a girl, was able to buy the guns legally, which we are going to get into a little later, and left behind a scary manifesto and videos. But we're told that this is stunning and brave, not disturbed and dangerous. And it boggles the mind that no one saw that this person was in crisis. And in his own words, he, well, you know what? Let's take a look at it. Because he understood that his situation was dire. He understood that he had been brainwashed. And I'll get to that in a second. But the media has avoided this. The media has avoided this like the plague. And we're having a little bit of a technical issue right here, but we'll get through it as we always do. The media is avoiding this, as I said, and they just don't want to admit that there could be that there could be something wrong. And the shooter knew that something was wrong, and he said so himself. Minneapolis school shooter confessed that he was tired of being trans and wished he never brainwashed himself. And this is from the New York Post. And let's see, here we go. In a twisted handwritten journal he shared on YouTube before the massacre, much of which was encrypted in a homespun code of Russian Cyrillic script and English words, he groaned about his long hair and his decision to transition. I regret being trans. I wish I was a girl. And just know I cannot achieve the body with the technology today that we have. I can't afford it. Where is it? Well, he goes on in this rant. Oh, here we go. I only keep the long hair because it's pretty much my last shred of being trans. I'm tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself, he wrote. This could not be the only clue that this person was having a problem. I refuse to believe that. But the media won't run with this because it shatters the affirmation narrative. Because obviously affirming this person's delusion had disastrous consequences. I mean, giving puberty blockers, hormones, estrogen shots to someone who isn't old enough to know how to balance a checkbook is not a brilliant medical breakthrough. And this kid didn't, this guy didn't just randomly snap because he chose a Catholic school during Mass. This was planned. And in those rantings and ravings and the videos, he expressed a contempt for Christians. I mean, he had Jesus' face on a target. Now, if this shooter had written, "I hate Muslims," the American Pravda would be all over this, asking how Islamophobia could be so rampant. Even though somebody who suffers from this delusion would be well within their rights to be Islamophobic because Muslims want to kill them. But if he says, if they say they hate Christians, crickets. And I'm not the only one that point, because this guy, not this guy, he was obvious, the shooter was obviously disturbed, but Sebastian Gorka was on CNN, and he was on CNN with Breonna Taylor, and he let her have it. And let me see if I can pull this up real quick, because this is absolutely worth hearing. And there's a lot for us to get into. And so I might be on this clip for a minute, but I think it's worth it because Gorka, he's not playing around. He is absolutely not playing around. So I guess y'all saw all of that, huh? Well, here we go. Check this out.
Mentioned at the top of your monologue, we have the videos, we have the statements from the dead shooter that were clearly anti-Christian, just as with the transgender attack on the Nashville Christian school in which more children were killed. There is an ideological connection to multiple of these attacks where innocent children, especially Christians and Catholics, are targeted, and that is very, very disturbing.
I know you have focused very much on.
It's gonna get good here in a second, but he absolutely just laid it out right there. But we're gonna get into there's another section of this where he gets into it even deeper. There's a few sections where he gets into it even deeper, and we're gonna get into that. But this is what happens when you don't let them get away with pushing their agenda and their narrative. And of course, the left was attacking him left and right. But he stood his ground, and it was glorious to watch. I encourage you to watch the whole thing. But let's revisit this.
So let me ask you about this. 96% of attackers when you're looking at the U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center, looking at 172 mass attacks in the U.S. between 2016 and 2020, 96% were non-trans men. So I know you're focusing on this shooter being trans. The shooter was trans, and that is certainly of note. But are you missing the bigger picture here when you zero in on that instead of more broadly these school shooters as an epidemic?
Did you catch that? Did you catch how she moved the goalposts? She started with mass attacks in general, and then pivoted to school shooters. And obviously, there is going to be some differences there. There's going to be some discrepancies, which Gorka is about to school her on.
And you perhaps miss the through line that connects them all.
Well, no, because your facts obfuscate two things. You are using data based upon the predominant gun violence, which is gang-on-gang violence with zero ideological content. If you remove all of that, the gang violence on the streets of Chicago, LA, Detroit, then you come down to a much smaller data set. So it's like those who say, gun violence in America causes so many deaths, and then fail to note that the majority of the stats they are using refer to also suicides by gun, which of course is not what we are talking about here today. So let's concentrate on mass shootings at schools, specifically Christian or Catholic schools. Then the data set is wholly different. So don't conflate different data sets just to make a political point. There was an ideological content to this attack. That's what terrorism is. It's not because somebody didn't get the drug deal they wanted. It is an ideological message, whether it was anti-Israel, as in this case, whether it targeted President Trump in its rhetoric, as we saw on one of the magazines written by the perpetrator on that YouTube video, or whether we saw the fact that it was anti-Christian and targeting children. That has nothing to do with gang violence. Let's not mix the two things up.
So
exactly. And that CNN, Breonna Taylor, I mean, she's a leftist propagandist. So, I mean, she's obviously just gonna be pushing the agenda, which Gorka notes later on in this clip. But yeah, you know what? Let's just go ahead and continue. She moved the goalposts again, because in some of the shootings that took place, they didn't kill more than 4 people, and so they're not counting it as a mass shooting, despite the fact that it was a school shooting perpetrated by somebody who was gender diluted. So there's that. You heard that, but didn't see it. I am all over the road this morning. I apologize. Let's let's move to this last clip. I wanna show where Gorka just lowers the boom on Breonna Taylor, and it is glorious to watch. All right, here we go.
Rhetoric. No, well, let me ask you this. You've made it clear and this is not going to change. You think transgender people are the problem here. So what specifically do you think should be done?
No. When did I say that?
Or you clearly think
When
it's
did I say that,
you think
Brianna?
it's a pattern.
You
You've
just
tweeted about
created live. You just created live fake news. You just did it right in
Mr.
front of the
Gorka,
small
what do you
viewership
think
you
should be
have,
done here?
okay?
You have zeroed in on the fact on what you see is a problem, what you claim is a problem. What do you want to do about it? What do you want to do about this problem you see?
I have noticed a disturbing. Do you think it's a problem that individuals are targeting little children at Catholic schools? Do you think that's something we should ignore?
Of course, I think that's a problem.
Thank you. So what we should do is we should look at the early warning signals, the signs. One of these shooters at a recent school shooting had 24 interactions with the local law enforcement. Now, that beggars belief. We should be providing off-ramps. We should be providing mental health options for these individuals. I find it hard to believe that an individual goes from getting his mother to sign a change of name certificate age 17, and then just a handful of years later is mowing down innocent children in a church pew during a Catholic mass, and nobody realized there was a problem. That's what we have to address to save the next children from the next atrocity. It's not about the sexual proclivities of the individual. It's the fact that nobody seems to notice a very disturbing pattern towards violence. You don't wake up one morning saying, I'm going to do a video on YouTube threatening to kill the president, Jews targeting children. That doesn't happen overnight. Somebody saw that degradation. Somebody saw those mental issues and said nothing. That's what we have to prevent. The early warning signals must be addressed if children's lives are to be saved.
And of course, he is absolutely 100% correct. Now, I guess you didn't hear that last clip. Not the one before that. I apologize. I'm missing a bunch of chats. BZ is in the chat. Thank you, BZ, for being here. And thank you for your insights. We'll see if we can get some of them up on the screen here in a bit. But I want to talk about this because the American Pravda, as I call them, will not touch what Sebastian Gorka just talked about. Of course, he broadened it out because she tried to pigeonhole him into a particular point, and he broadened it out. But in terms of the gender deluded people who are committing these crimes, they are 3 times more likely to be prescribed antidepressants and other drugs than the general population. That's a problem. And in Sweden, they found out that trans people or people who believe that they are the opposite sex. I hate using the term trans because it's just it can't happen. But anyway, they are 6 times more likely to be diagnosed with mood or anxiety disorders, and 6 times more likely to land in the hospital as a result of a suicide attempt. These people are already a high risk population. And our esteemed medical establishment decides that pumping them full of SSRIs and then layering hormones on top of that and puberty blockers and all the rest of it, and then they pat themselves on the back because they're affirming their identity. That's not compassion. They would have us believe it's compassion, but it's not. It's malpractice wrapped in a pride flag. That's what it is. And it's dangerous, and it's getting people killed. No matter how much the American Pravda and propagandists like Breonna Taylor want to avoid that and dodge that point, that's what it is. So where the brilliant plan they came up with was to pump these already unstable people full of more drugs, and then they're shocked when the result is a tragedy. The obvious question is there a way to prevent some of these people from with these serious psychiatric issues? Is there a way to prevent them from getting legal access to guns? And this, I know that sounds like something you would hear from a leftist, but it's not, trust me. These people are mentally disturbed. I said on social media a few times as a result of this that we need to make mental asylums great again. These people need to be adjudicated mentally unfit. The left is always talking about due process these days when it comes to illegal aliens. Well, we need to get some due process involved in getting some of these people the help that they need so that they cannot legally access firearms. This is not, and no matter how much the left would like you to believe that this is me being hateful and that people who espouse this viewpoint are hateful, it's not hateful. It's just acknowledging the reality. And the reality is that these people are dangerous. And we're going to get further into that here in a little bit. The American Pravda, like the Communist News Network and MSDNC, or should I say BS Now, they say that these instances are statistically rare, and while they may be a problem, they're not the problem. They ignore the targeting of Christians because reasons, and they always pivot to guns being the problem. I saw so many posts on social media, basically saying the problem is the guns. Get rid of the guns. Take away the guns. The epidemic is not guns. The epidemic is not guns, and it's not Christians. Christians are not the problem either. It's the cocktail of lies and hormones, puberty blockers, and SSRIs. Until we stop confusing or until we stop calling confusion compassion, we're going to keep dealing with this. We're going to keep filling small coffins and writing excuses for these deranged killers. It's that plain and simple. And I said we were going to get into the Second Amendment aspect of this. Remember back nearly a decade ago, I believe it was 2016 or 2015, which would make it a decade ago, when the Obama administration tried to backdoor gun control through the Social Security Administration. They did that, and it actually went through, but thankfully President Trump, when he took office, so I believe it was 2016, he signed legislation to roll that back. But the Social Security Administration implemented a rule where they could just make a determination that somebody was mentally unfit. And because the best place for that determination is some bureaucracy that can't even get your benefits out on time. But now the same people who think that a soldier with PSD or an elderly person or someone with severe dyslexia is a danger, but kids on puberty blockers and all these other psychiatric meds, they're just fine. They're just fine. Now, just a quick recap of this rule. The the bureaucrats in the Social Security Administration were able to make a determination based on their feelings, most likely, that someone was mentally defective. And as I said, that could be a soldier with PTSD. That could be an elderly person who needs help navigating their finances. And this rule meant that it could all be done with no judge, no due process, no hearing, nothing. Just, yeah, I have to help you with this, so that means you're unfit, and we're going to report you to Nick so you can't get firearms. And if you have any, you're going to have to give them up. The way that this went down, basically, if you cash a disability check, you are now one stamp, one determination from some anti-gun bureaucrat. You are one step away from landing on a terror watch list and having your rights stripped away. And no lawyer, they didn't even have to really tell you, according to this rule. Just strip away your rights and then you can fight it later. This was red flag laws on steroids. Only this time your accuser was a government bureaucrat who was pretty much immune from any type of repercussions for doing any of this. Now, the irony here is that, the obvious example is the vets with PTSD or seniors who need help with their finances and things like that. But those people were in danger of being disarmed, and in some cases were. But these kids on these SSRIs and puberty blockers and all the rest of that cocktail, they were protected, they are celebrated, and they're not subject to any scrutiny whatsoever. If you're on Social Security disability, you're too dangerous for a Glock. But if you're a teenager pumped full of antidepressants and all the rest of it, and you're confused about what gender you are, well, make your way to the ladies' room, and anyone who judges you is a bigot or something. There is a growing list. I don't have it in front of me, or maybe I do, but there's a growing list of shooters who have been who have committed these atrocities. The shooters in Aberdeen, in Iowa, in Georgia, in Philadelphia, in Nashville. Now, some of the, like the Communist News Network will argue some of those and say that there was no evidence that they were gender diluted or whatever. I disagree, as did Sebastian Gorka. But nevertheless, all of these, or most of these shooters on these drug cocktails and these therapies, none of them were flagged in NICS. None of them. This latest one was able to buy his guns legally. You misgender these people, and that's violence. But they open fire on a school, on school children, and it's a mental health crisis. There needs to be a mechanism by which, if you are prescribed this, if you've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria or whatever else, whatever other gender confusion diagnosis they come up with, there needs to be a legal pathway to get you on a list that deems you mentally unfit. You need to be reported to NICS and unable to obtain firearms. What you really need is to be put in a mental institution, which would eliminate all of that altogether. That's what really needs to happen. And until we make mental asylums great again, getting adjudicated mentally unfit is going to be the next best thing. BZ's in chat sounding off. That's just an expression of their confusion and a cry for help. You're incredibly harsh and judgmental, as I've said before. Yes, I am. I am incredibly harsh and judgmental when it comes to these nut jobs killing kids, killing anyone. Yes, I am. I will absolutely own that, BZ. But when they commit these types of acts, it's a mental health crisis, and we need to be compassionate to them, according to the left. But what this shows is that they're not really concerned about dangerous people. I mean, the evidence of that is clear when it comes to cashless bail, when it comes to the way crime is running rampant in these progressive cities run by these woke mayors and governors. They don't, the truly dangerous people are serving their purpose. But their real worry is armed, law-abiding citizens who might get fed up and resist their tyranny. That is something they can't have. These criminals they can control to a certain extent, but somebody who exercises their constitutional rights in a responsible way and pretty much just wants to be left alone, those are the dangerous people in their minds, and they simply cannot have that. They'll take a veteran's gun for needing help paying his bills or whatever, but adjudicating a teenager mentally unfit, hopped up on hormones and melting down on TikTok, nothing. That should tell you right there that it's not about safety, it's about control. And that's something that's an evergreen topic around here that I've said hundreds, if not thousands of times. It's all about their power and control. And that was just a trial balloon. They're going to try it again. And I guarantee you that these mentally disturbed, gender confused, gender deluded individuals hopped up on all these hormones and other drug cocktails. They couldn't care less about whether or not they get guns. It's all about disarming the people that they fear. The people who are a threat to their power and control. And the people who are actually dangerous. Yeah. Just the price of doing business as far as they're concerned, apparently. These people are ridiculous. And it's incredibly frustrating to see this. And not just to see it, but then to know that there are people who keep voting these people in. And I made a comment earlier today on social media because to Gavin Newsom, because I questioned whether or not he actually won his recall election or whether or not there was something nefarious going on. He hasn't responded. He never will. I'm surprised he hasn't blocked me yet. Surprised I haven't been blocked by a few people. I try as I might. Try as I might. I haven't been blocked by some of these people. But anyway, I want to move on. But before we do, I want to get in a word from our sponsor. And our sponsor for today's show is Patriot Mobile. Now more than ever, even though things are looking up with President Trump in the White House, but regardless of that, more than ever, your vote is just not enough. You need to make sure that your resources go to companies that fight for and believe in what you believe in. That's why we switched to Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They don't just talk about values, they back them up. A portion of every dollar that you spend with them goes to pro-life, pro-family, and pro-freedom organizations. And right now you can get a free month of service when you go to patriotmobile.com and use promo code Jackson or call 972-PATRIOT and use promo code Jackson. Defend freedom with every call and every text that you make every month. Switch to patriotmobile.com today. patriotmobile.com/Jackson. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch a bunch of great shows. Sackhead Sean with The Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. The Reverb Common Sense with Jersey Joe every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ, who is lighting us up in the chat every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. And that means he will be on tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern. So be sure to like and subscribe to all of these great shows and help us spread the word. Pray for us that we continue to break through and break out this year and reach as many people as we possibly can. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled programming. There has been the violence in some of these leftist-run cities has been ridiculous. And President Trump proposing sending in the National Guard has the media shrieking racist. And the real crisis in Chicago apparently is not the 573 homicides that they had last year. It's hurting Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker's feelings. The fact that these people are fighting to keep their streets unsafe is mystifying, doesn't even really begin to cover it. It really doesn't. In Chicago, like I said, last year in 2024, there were 573 homicides. In Philadelphia, there were approximately 400. In Memphis, Tennessee, 297. Baltimore, about 260. In Detroit, 203. And President Trump has proposed sending in the National Guard to help stem this violence. And of course, and they're resisting. You have body bags stacked up like firewood in these blue hellholes. But yeah, the National Guard, that's the problem. These people are, as I said, mystifying doesn't even begin to cover it. And of course, the race hustlers are out in force saying that it's because the leaders of these cities are the mayors are black. If stopping crime where it happens is racist, then math itself is racist. And of course, if you recall a few years ago, people actually did say that math was racist. Yes. I don't know if you recall that, maybe you blocked it out, but yeah. Getting the right answer it's such a white thing, I guess. Again, beyond mystifying. And we had we had last time we were together, I showed you that clip of Brandon Johnson dodging the question of whether or not more police would help reduce crime. But of course, he's a defund the police guy. He hasn't really come out and said that since he's been elected mayor. But that's how when he was running, that was his shtick. He was a defund the police guy. And we're gonna get to him in a second, but I want to get into the root cause of this, because the root cause is something that they never talk about. They never talk about it. And the root cause of all of this, one of the root causes, the main one, is fatherlessness. Over 70% of Black children are born into single parent homes. Dads get themselves a little something, and then peace out, and leave their girl holding a child. When the dads step away, gangs step in, and they offer death, destruction, guns instead of guidance. Ephesians 6:4 says, "And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord." Strong fathers who love their children and raise them properly, that would go a long, that would go the entire way of stemming, quelling this epidemic of violence that we're seeing. Yeah. Thanks, BZ. I was going to get to that, but I'll go ahead and do it now. Larry Elder said that there are 3 steps to avoid poverty. The first one, graduate from high school. The second one, do not have a child out of wedlock. And the third, make good life choices. I mean, it's so obvious, really. And we know that Larry Elder is a really smart guy, but that's just basic, obvious stuff that nobody wants to talk about. But when gangs take the role of fathers of these kids, guns are take the place of guidance, and drugs and dealing drugs are better than discipline in these people's minds. The drugs and the money that they get from it. Never disregard the fact that engaging in this kind of behavior is a high risk endeavor, and your life expectancy is cut short because a rival gang is doing the same thing you're doing, and they want to make that money that you're making. But they don't want to address that issue, and they just treat it like bad weather. Grab an umbrella and hope it passes, or wait for it to pass, which it's not going to. It's not going to until somebody steps in and does something about it. So the biggest issue when it comes to this is fathers. And the America First Policy Institute did a write-up on this about a year ago, a little over a year ago now. And I want to get into some of this because their analysis is spot on. The United States has the highest rate of children in single-parent households of any nation in the world. 18 million fatherless children in this country. Fathers are absent from 80% of single-parent homes. Fatherless families are 4 times more likely to live in poverty than that for married couple families. Fatherless children are more likely to abuse drugs. Father absence is a predictor of violence. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions come from single-parent homes. 75% of juvenile delinquents, of a study of 75 juvenile delinquents, 66% experienced fatherlessness, 20% had never lived with their father, and 25% had an alcoholic father. These numbers are just sad and staggering. Data suggests 72% of adolescent murderers and 70% of long-term prison inmates come from fatherless homes. Why nobody ever wants to address this? Why the American Pravda doesn't? Well, we know why the American Pravda doesn't. This is part of their plan. This is what they want. So as long as things are going according to their plan, they are not going to do anything to rock that boat. And if you think I'm making this up, if you think I'm just saying that it's part of their plan without any real evidence, well, you would be wrong, because the evidence, if you're paying attention at all, the evidence is clear. But I want to get into this because, and forgive me, things got a little wonky just before we went on the air. But I want to show you this, because this right here is evidence that this must be part of a plan. Chicago used to have a program called ShotSpotter. And what that did was it alerted the police that there were gunshots in a particular area, and the police could roll to that area. But Chicago, they turned them off. The contract for the program ran out, and they didn't bother to renew it or come up with an alternative. And as a result, the crime stats dropped. That is where you're getting where they're getting this idea that crime is reduced in the city of Chicago. The sheer ignorance of that. And of course, ShotSpotter, the end of the program, wasn't something that was widely reported, wasn't something that people knew about. And so they can get away with saying, yeah, crime is dropping. Chicago is celebrating a huge drop in crime and shootings. And of course, that's bound to happen when they turn off shot detectors in neighborhoods. This is from Twitchy. Nearly a year after Chicago officials turned off the city's gunshot detection system, a new analysis of Chicago crime data shows a steep drop in violent crime and homicides in the 12 South and West Side neighborhoods that had ShotSpotter sensors. Imagine that. Imagine that. It's almost like if you ignore and don't report crime, the crime numbers will decrease. Well, yeah. And so I said that this was evidence that this was part of the plan. Well, yeah, the criminals are still out there doing criminal stuff, but they're getting away with saying that crime is dropping. Well, they're attempting to get away with saying crime is dropping because the reported numbers are low. This is part of the plan. Nothing says progress like pulling the batteries out of your smoke alarm during a fire. That is one of the most ghetto things you can possibly do. And Mayor Johnson, Mayor Mohawk, as I started calling him, that's exactly what he's doing. That's exactly what he's doing. And to add fuel to that fire, going with the fire metaphor again, over Labor Day weekend, this past weekend, 54 people were shot. 7 people were killed. 54. And BZ likes to show this. I've actually showed it a few times on my old show, The Liberty Cast, and this is Hey Jackass. This is I'm surprised that there aren't other cities doing something like this, but this is I don't want to say wonderful because it's really sad the data that we're getting from this, but this is a very informative site, and it shows you in real time just what's happening with the city of Chicago. And you can look here on the right side of the screen. On Friday, on Saturday, look at this. This is insane. Year to date, Chicago has 245 people shot and killed, 1,121 shot and wounded, with a total of 1,366 people shot, 293 total homicides. That's why Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker are so against having the president intervene and send in federal troops to help stop this is criminal, honestly. It's criminal. They should be doing everything they possibly can to put an end to this. And if their department can't handle it and somebody is offering to help, only an insane person would turn that down. Only an insane person or somebody who has another agenda. And with Mayor Mohawk, who knows? Good old BZ Chicago death toll update. Yes. This is sad. The crime like this is always sad, but the fact that Johnson, Mohawk, is actively fighting to keep President Trump from helping to bring down some of these numbers, like I said, it's criminal, absolutely criminal. And he signed an executive order the other day, and I want to get into that because it just shows. Yeah, here we go. It just shows the utter, it's not even incompetence, because I have used that word in the past, but I don't even think it's incompetence anymore, because it's purposeful. It's absolutely purposeful. Here we go. This is Mayor Johnson's that I
prefer to work in a more collaborative approach. I do not take this executive action lightly. I would have preferred to work in a more collaborative approach. I'm signing an executive order today that will launch the Protecting Chicago initiative. This is a project that builds on the months of preparation that we have done that has led up to this very moment. Protecting Chicago will ensure that every Chicagoan knows their rights, that every single family is prepared, and every part of city government is directed to protect the people of Chicago from federal action. This order affirms that the Chicago Police Department will not collaborate with military personnel on police patrols or civil immigration enforcement. We will not have our police officers, who are working hard every single day to drive down crime, deputized to do traffic stops and checkpoints for the president.
People actually believe this. There are people who actually believe that that is what President Trump is proposing. I repeat, he'd rather stack black bodies and admit he's fundamentally wrong. Well, I don't think he would even entertain the thought that he's wrong. I think he believes he is actually in the right. Chicago citizens are nothing but fodder for Democrat and leftist philosophy. Yeah, absolutely. But let's continue.
This order affirms the CPD officers will be directed to wear CPD uniforms and refrain from wearing masks so that residents can clearly distinguish them from federal agents. We will protect our Constitution, we will protect our city, and we will protect our people. We do.
Really? You're doing a bang-up job protecting your people. I mean, protecting his people is the last thing on his mind, obviously. Obviously.
We do not want to see tanks in our streets.
Really? Really, dude? You're not going to see tanks in your streets, mainly because those tanks would tear up the streets, and that's not what this dude.
Do not want to see families ripped apart. We do not want grandmothers thrown into the back of unmarked vans. We don't want to see homeless Chicagoans harassed or disappeared by federal agents. We don't want to see Chicagoans arrested for sitting on their porch. That's not who we are as a city, and that's not who we are as a nation. This executive order makes it emphatically clear that this president is not going to come in and deputize our police department.
This dude, he is a disgrace. Between turning off ShotSpotter, turning down help in quelling crime, it's obvious that this is a plan. This is a plan. I'm not sure what the end goal is aside from just amassing power and money. Maybe that's the extent of it. And maybe with respect to Johnson, that's about as deep as he's thought about it. I don't think he's bright enough to do anything else. But as I talked about the race hustlers saying that President Trump trying to do this is racist, Mayor Johnson obviously doesn't want to stop crime, but calling Trump a racist for wanting to stop crime is like calling firefighters arsonists when they go into a burning building. These people are not dying because Trump is a racist. They're dying because children are being raised in fatherless homes. Gangs are running rampant. Drugs are pervasive. And the leaders of these areas don't want to do anything about it, whether it's cowardice or otherwise, cowardice or malice, who knows? But either way, and I know that just before I came on the air, there was a judge that that ruled that Trump could not send in the National Guard for law enforcement. I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing. I really just saw the headline, so that's all I'm going to say on it because I don't know much more about it. But these activist judges, they're in on it. They're in on it. See, again, us conservative podcasters run out of the appropriate word to describe the insanity that we see and point out. Well, yeah, it's sad. All right, there's a few other things I want to get to, and one of them is, you know what? Let's just do it now. Let's just get into it now because when I saw this, I really was dumbfounded. And some people who saw it and are commenting on it say that it was a satirical take, and and he was using satire to point out the absurdity of our leaders. But that's not how I read it, and I watched the entire interview, and I'm talking about Tucker Carlson. And he did an interview with a journalist, and let's just get into it. Let me just play it, and then we'll talk about it. And I'll probably stop it halfway through and talk about some things. But listen to this.
Making music illegal, and they do those things. The Taliban is an arch conservative movement whose ethics and morality I absolutely do not share. However,
I never understood why I was supposed to give a shit about that. I mean, I want everyone to be free just as a matter of principle, but that didn't. But moving, metric tons of heroin into my country, that seems like a real story. Whether people can, girls can get PhDs in feminist studies or whatever is of less concern to me, right?
Right. Well, the Afghan people didn't like it either, all the drug trafficking that was going on in their country. And what made the Taliban popular originally was their suppression of the drug industry in Afghanistan. They took over and eliminated all of the drug production that was taking place there, because you can see how it's ideologically consistent with their Sharia law.
Mm-hmm.
They don't tolerate drugs. They don't tolerate alcohol either. So they get rid of all of it.
Sharia law is bad, Seth. I don't know if you've heard that. It's bad. It's worse than what's happening in New York and Detroit. It's just bad. I don't know why. It's just like years of brainwashing. I'm not Muslim. I'm not for Sharia law. On the other hand, compared to what?
It goes on. But as I said, people are talking about this and saying, well, he's just I don't know. He's being sarcastic and pointing out how the leaders of this country are failing us. And again, that's not how I read it at all. To me, this is, and there have been other things that Tucker Carlson has said recently, other interviews he's done where it's just like, what happened to this guy? He used to be one of the people that I respected in terms of his analysis and his. I didn't necessarily think he was as conservative as I am, but I at least thought he was right more often than he was wrong. But this is just unbelievable. Let's continue.
Compared to Baltimore, shut up. Sharia law.
Well,
Sorry, Sharia law.
I'm not.
And to me, that's just mocking. That's just mocking the people who don't want to see Sharia law implemented in places like Dallas and Florida and all these other places where they and over in Europe where the Muslims are just taking over. Where something like that could happen in New York if Mamdani gets elected. But yeah, go ahead and mock anyway.
Here to be a drug warrior or paternalistic or to lecture people who struggle with substance abuse, but I certainly agree with you that should be a value.
But you should know, Seth, that the real danger is Sharia law. Sharia law. And you can tell when you go to a place like Abu Dhabi or Riyadh, like, oh man, I hope we don't ever wind up with a society like this with a rape rate of 0, where you leave your keys in your Lamborghini and don't ever worry about it being stolen. And, if people want to get wasted, they do it at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Oh
don't.
boy, I hope we don't wind up with that.
Mhm.
That was when I first heard that, because I saw that clip, or I saw a couple of those clips, and so I had to watch the whole thing because I just knew that there had to be some broader context to what he was saying. There wasn't. Go ahead, and I have the. I think I put the video in the show notes, but just Google it. It's on YouTube, the whole thing. As far as I'm concerned, there was no broader context. He based on that, he truly believes that it wouldn't be a problem in this country if Sharia law was in widespread acceptance. This is again, I'm kind of at a loss for words when it comes to this, because you would think that was parody. You would think that it was that you would think that he was actually mocking our leaders and whatnot. But the only interpretation I can come up with is that he was, especially at the end when he talked about going to Riyadh and Abu Dhabi and stuff like that, he was praising it. He was praising Sharia law, and I get the idea that he really wants it, despite the fact that it's legal to female genital mutilation is allowed. Marrying 9-year-olds is allowed. Beating your wives plural, is allowed. Just despite eliminating drugs, despite eliminating alcohol abuse and stuff like that, that does not outweigh the fact that rape is legal, that pedophilia is legal, that female genital mutilation is legal. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, let's go ahead and mock Sharia law. This guy, I whatever respect I had for him was gone the moment I watched that interview. And it had already been waning. But the moment I saw that, I was just done. And I encourage you to watch it, because I think you probably will be too, if you're not already. All right. It is 12:15. We got about 15 minutes left, and there's a few other things I want to get to. Let's do this. CBS is at it again. They just got sued for editing that interview with Kamala Harris, and they did it again. They did it again in an interview with Kristi Noem, and it was so blatant and so obvious. Excuse me. that they, as soon as they got called out, within minutes, they posted the full interview on YouTube. And so both interviews are up there. And I didn't have time to go through it myself and pull all of the places where it was cut. But Christy Nome actually posted something like that, and so we're gonna get into that right now. And it's just not that. This. It's just so. I don't. I don't understand how they haven't gotten even. We know they're not going to change. We know they're going to continue to be propagandists for the left. But you would think that they would get a little smarter, wouldn't you? And maybe that's just an indication that they can't, that they're not smart enough to get smarter about it. But check this out.
And the one thing that we will continue to do is to make sure that he doesn't walk free in the United States of America. This individual was a known human smuggler, a MS-13 gang member, an individual who was a wife beater.
So what you can see on the bottom is the way it actually aired on CBS, as it says right there, aired on CBS. And the actual response to the question is what they ended up cutting out.
And someone who was so perverted that he solicited nude photos from minors. And even his fellow human traffickers told him to knock it off. He was so sick in what he was doing and how.
Now, I hadn't heard that. I did not know that he was trying to get nude photos from minors. That was news to me. And why he's still in this country and why he's not in Uganda right now is, well, we know why. It's because leftist activist judges are blocking his deportation. But let's continue.
How he was treating small children. So he needs to never be in the United States of America. And our administration is making sure we're doing all that we can to bring him to justice. And the one thing that we will continue.
They just can't help themselves. They just cannot help themselves. They actually cut out an explanation as to why he was being deported. And that just could not be allowed to air because it didn't fit the Maryland Man narrative. BZ says, you should never agree to an interview with the American media maggots absent your own camera and recording technology. Well, yeah, either that, and if you absent that, at least do it live. At least do it live. But you should never. You should never. And her actual response was good. And I think that President Trump has picked people, some good people who know how to handle the media. And thankfully she called them out and they reversed themselves pretty quickly. I'm actually kind of surprised they did, but nevertheless, the American Pravda is just, they're propagandists for the Democrat Party. And they can't be trusted. They cannot be trusted. All right, a couple more things I want to get to. We have another we have another leftist ranting and raving about, well, Rashida Tlaib is any description I come up with for her is doesn't begin to cover her depravity. Why she's still in office is beyond me. But she was at a rally recently, a rally for an organization that is pro-Palestine, pro-terrorist. And we all know she's a pro-terrorist. She hates Israel. And she was at this at this rally, and she was wearing a keffiyeh and spouting her ridiculous lies. So let's get into this real quick.
Thought they could kill us, rape us, imprison us, violently uproot us from our olive tree farms, starve our children to death, and we would disappear.
Olive tree farms, really? Y'all are terrorists. Come on. And again, just like with Mayor Mohawk, people believe this. People actually believe this.
Well, guess what? Now we're in Congress and we're every corner of the United States. Y'all, they just don't get it. They just don't get it. They will never truly comprehend, Jama'ah, even after 7 decades, that we aren't going anywhere. We are just getting started. I want to say to all of them, every genocide enabler, look at this rooms, motherfuckers. We ain't going anywhere.
I really wish you would go somewhere. She is her and Ilhan Omar. They don't belong in Congress because they are openly advocating for, well, in Omar's case, she's advocating for Somalia. In Tlaib's case, she's arguing for a terrorist organization because Palestine is not an actual state, but she's arguing she's arguing for terrorists. And the fact that people still vote for her means that these people are participating in a coup of their own country. Because that's what she's after. She's advocating for a terrorist organization that wants to see this country and our allies wiped off the map. B says she's gross. Oh, she is. She absolutely is. And BZ says Islam needs to be removed wholesale from the United States. They are nothing more than a barbaric death cult. 100%. Could not agree more. Could not agree more. It's Muzzies and Galps voting for these bins. Yes, BZ, absolutely. And Galps is guilty, overeducated white people. All right, I got one more thing I want to get to, and this is a little lighter, and let's see if I can pull it up. I may not be able to. As I said, things got a little wonky just before we went on air. No, I don't have it. I'm not going to waste your time trying to find it. So that is all I got for you today, folks. I will keep trying to make each episode better than the last one. If any of what I said hit home for you, take a second to like and subscribe and share this episode, share these videos, share the channel with everyone that you know, because we're not just here to opine and bloviate. We're here to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and family and hope for future generations. And if you want some cool gear, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all the great designs that we have there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.